I'm Philip Vincent, and I'm a certified internal auditor. My job as an internal auditor is to provide information for decision makers. But how do you get that information? What do you do with it? And what's the best way to present it? Well, I'm going to show you. Today, I'll show you how to perform a basic diversity analysis using Excel. Afterward, we'll take a look at a place that has a sophisticated diversity dashboard for real-time analysis. What is diversity? Diversity is people with different characteristics: gender, age, ethnic group, veteran status, religion, and sexual orientation. We will focus on gender and ethnicity in our limited example. Why is diversity important? Diversity brings different perspectives, increased creativity, faster problem solving and decision making, reduced employee turnover, better corporate reputation, and increased profitability. Let's get started. I have a file I've created of 100 sample employees. You would get this from your ERP in an HR module. If you have access to HR, you can run the report yourself. If you don't, then you'll have to have someone help you. So I have 100 employees here in my example. I've given them different genders and ethnicities, departments, and salaries. I got these ethnicities from Google LLC. This is my original file here. I've gone ahead and put the tab color in red as a warning not to touch it. Instead, I've made a copy and I've placed it here in the green tab color and called it edited. This is where I'll make any changes. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a filter on my data. This allows me to see what my data is made of. So here in my first column, I have my employee numbers. In my gender column, I have female, male, and transgender. In my ethnicity column, I've got Asian, Black, Latinx, Native American, 2 or more races, and white. My sample departments include executive, finance, HR, IT, legal, marketing, and operations. And I've got my annual salary and hourly salary. So the first thing you're going to do after you've placed a filter on here to see what your data includes is you're going to format your data. So you've done your data mining, you have your file. Now you're going to do your data cleansing. Make the data such that you can use it for data analysis. So I'm going to click on column A, right click, format cells, and make sure this is text, so it will sort as a text. I'm going to do that for gender, ethnicity, and department. Right click, format cells, make sure it's a text. Okay. For my salary amounts, right click, format cells. I'm going to have that as a number with 2 decimal places. You could use currency, but I'll just keep it as a number so I don't have the dollar sign for now. And because I'm working on the edited copy where I'll make changes, I've gone ahead and I've inserted 2 columns. The first is called count. It's in blue to illustrate a change that I've made, versus black, which is the original information from the file. So for count, I'll just put 1 in every cell. This will help me later when I do my pivot tables. So 1 count is 1 record, and when I summarize the values, that will count each one as 1, and it will add up to tell me my total that I'm interested in. I've also gone ahead and I've added an average salary range at the end. So this formula is the low end of the salary range plus the high end of the salary range divided by 2. So I've formatted my columns, and I've added 2 columns that will help me later when I create my pivot tables. So we have the data. We've cleansed the data. To present it, we're going to use Microsoft PowerPoint. This is my example company. Point in time is the day that I ran the report to extract the data from the Human Resources module of my ERP. That's point in time, 2/28/21. And now I'll come back over to Excel, and the first thing I'm going to look at is my gender diversity. So I create a pivot table. To do that, I select the data I want to use, insert, pivot table. I've made that one right here, pivot table gender. So over here you have my field values. I have gender as the row, and I have count as the value, and I'm selecting sum of count. Because I placed all the ones in there, it will add them up and tell me that I have 20 females, 78 males, and 2 transgenders. I'm going to take this data, copy, and paste the values over here. I like to paste the values so that I don't interfere with the pivot table. And by pasting the values, I don't have to worry about any changes that will be pasted incorrectly. You can also spell out female, male, transgender. I have a number for each. I know they add up to 100 employees. But then I've also gone ahead and placed the percentage. This is pretty easy since they're over 100. Kept it anyway. And then to make my graph, I select the genders and I select the percentages. Insert, graph, pie chart. So I have 2 ways of expressing the data. I have my table form, if I like to read the numbers, and I have my graph if I like to see the pictures and see that male is the largest area. I'm going to take both of these, I'm going to cut and paste them back into PowerPoint. This will be my first slide of information. So I have my genders, the number of employees in each gender, as well as a percentage. One way is a table, the other way as a graph. The next thing I want to do, after I've looked at gender diversity as a whole, I'm going to look at gender diversity by department. Come back to Excel. I'll go ahead and make another pivot table, insert pivot table, and it will be another tab. So this is my pivot table by department. My field list is over here. So I have my department as a row. I have gender as columns, and I have count as values. And again, it will be the sum of the counts, and that will let me know how many records I have in each one. Go ahead and close that. So it tells me that I have 0 female executives, 3 male executives, and 0 transgender executives. Cut and paste this over here, paste the values, and go ahead and label it. So these are my departments. Spell it out. F for female, M for male, T for transgender. And anywhere there was a blank, I'll go ahead and I'll put a 0 in. That shows me that there is 0 female executives, 0 females in IT, and 0 females in legal. If I want to drive the point home even further, I can also highlight that in yellow. So that's one way to look at it in the table form. The other way is with the graph. Again, select the information, insert, graph. I'm doing this one stacked. And you can see the colors. So orange is for male, blue is for female. Executive, there's no blue. IT, no blue. And legal, no blue. You can see in operations, the majority is male. Have a little bit of female and even less transgender. Okay, I will copy and paste my table and graph over here to PowerPoint. So now I can see the gender by department. Again, in case you want to highlight any that are 0, you can put them in yellow, or you could just leave them as 0. If you want to draw more attention to them, you can put them in yellow. You got your table form here, and you got your graph form here. All right, next we're going to look at ethnic diversity as a whole. Come back to Excel. Still working with this same table here. Insert a pivot table. I've done that over here. My field list. I have ethnicity as a row, and the values are going to be the count, some of the count. So this tells me I've got 2 Asians, 10 blacks, 8 Latinx, 1 Native American, 1 2 or more race, and 78 white. Again, copy, paste values, have a number column. I know I've got 100 employees, but then I'll also go and express it as a percentage. It's over 100, so these are the same, but did it anyway, in case you have a different number of employees than 100. One way to represent it with the table, another way with the graph. Again, the largest number, ethnic group, white, 78. In the graph, the biggest area, the largest color is green, 78% white. Okay, copy and paste both of those back over to PowerPoint. Boom, here you go. So 2 ways to look at it, table and graph. After we've looked at the ethnic diversity as a whole across the company, we're going to look at the ethnic diversity by gender. So again, we'll create our pivot tables. Insert pivot table, put it in a new tab. So here's my pivot table here. I have the ethnicities and I have the counts. That's what we saw earlier for this one, but I've also added a filter. Up here you can see the filter is gender. So I'm going to start with the females first, and it's going to tell me I have Asian, Black, Latinx, and white females. Copy, paste the values over here, put the little F to remind me these are the females, and I have my count or my number, 1, 2, 3, and 14. Those add up to 20. So I have only 20 females out of 100, and these are the percentages out of the 20. So the majority of females are white, 14 out of 20, or 70%. So I have that expressed both in a table form as well as a graph form. Here white is the yellow color. It's the largest area, largest color, 70%. Copy and paste those over to PowerPoint. And here we go. Female diversity. only 1 Asian, 2 blacks, 3 Latinx, 14 white. Again, the whites are 70%, the largest number, biggest area. So I'll do that for males and transgenders. Switch my filter from from female to male. Copy, paste values right here. This tells me how many Asians, blacks, Latinx, Native Americans, 2 or more, and whites that are men. Percentages out of 78. Both as a table and as a graph. Again, you would just select the data here, insert, graph, 2D, boom. So that's this one, and I'll copy and paste that one. It's my male diversity, only 1 Asian, 81% white. One more time for transgender. That's the T. There's only 2 transgender employees. Copy, paste values, so they're down here. One is Latinx, one is white, 50-50, half and half. Copy and paste those back to PowerPoint. It's going to look like this. So each one gets their own slide. Female diversity, male diversity, and transgender diversity. So we've looked at gender as a whole, gender by department, ethnicity as a whole, ethnicity by gender, and now we're going to look at ethnicity by department. Back to our data, make another pivot table. I've already done that. Here's mine. Pivot table, ethnicities by department. Click on here, show you the field list. We've got departments as the row, ethnicity as the column, and count as the value, sum of count. So this will tell you how many of each you have per department. Close that. Copy, paste value. So this tells me in the executive department, I've got 0 Asian, 0 black, 0 Latin, 0 Native American, 0 2 or more, 3 white employees. And there's 3 people total in that department. Okay, the same with the rest of the departments. If you want to drive the point home, you can highlight it in yellow. I've placed zeros where they're blanks, highlighted in yellow. There are no minorities in the executive department, or legal, or marketing. I have the columns slanted and to the right. This will help me for when I paste it to PowerPoint. I have it here as a table, but then I've also done it as a graph. Stacked columns. There's just one color, green. This is for white employees. And the executive, the legal, and the marketing. Operations has a few more colors, but you can see that green is still the largest. Copy and paste those over to PowerPoint. This is ethnicity by department. Again, I'm going to keep the yellow just to make it obvious. No minorities in those 3 departments. And we also have it in graph form. So there you have your diversity analysis. We're going to take it one step further, and we're going to see how much employees get paid versus their gender versus their diversity. So these are the pay comparisons. We're going to look at hourly rates by gender, hourly rates within each ethnic group, and then we're going to compare females within their ethnic group versus the average hourly rate for a regular female, your average female. And then we'll do the same thing for males and their ethnic groups versus your average hourly male. And lastly, we'll do the same for transgenders by ethnic group versus the average hourly rate for a transgender. So to do that, I'm going to come back to Excel, and I've created a little template here, made a new tab, called it Pay, and this is what my template looks like. For the gender one, I've got male, female, transgender. I've got number and percentage. For the salaries, I've got lowest, highest, and average. And this is the mean, not the median. So it's the arithmetic average of all males or females or transgenders. It's not the average of these two numbers. I'll show you that. I'll click on the lowest, and I'll click on the highest, and the average is 68, and that's not the same as 32. Okay? So to get these numbers, I manually went over to my edited file, my data, and I said, how many males do I have? We knew that from before in our pivot table here. 78 males, 20 females, 2 transgenders. Boom, as a percentage. And to get the lowest salary for male, female, transgender, again, if you're working with ACL or IDEA, I could probably do it for you, but I've done this manually in Excel using a filter. So I want just the males, and then I'm going to sort the salary smallest to largest. So I know my lowest hourly salary is $16.83. Paste that over here for the male. Come back, sort it largest to smallest. So the largest is 120.19. Copy paste that for the largest male. And again, it's not the average of these two, it's the average of all the males. So I can select this column since it's filtered for just the males, and it'll tell me my average is 32.46. Remember that. Punch it in here, 32.46. Do the same thing with the females. Smallest to largest. So the lowest paid female, 19.23. Highest paid female, 48.08. Punch those in. 19.23, 48.08. Come back, select the column. Average all the females, 28.87. Punch this in. Same thing for the transgenders. There's only 2 of them, so this really is the average of the highest and the lowest, because there's only 2 of them. So I did this all manually, and I punched it in, but I made a little template, and then I'll do that for gender overall, males versus females, and then I'll do it each time for the ethnic groups. So for Asian men, I'll come back to my data. I'll clear the data. So I'm just looking at males that are Asian, and there's only 1. So the highest and lowest are the same. I'll just put it as an average. 38.46. Female, no transgenders. But then also have the difference. So this is the difference between male pay on average and female pay. So males make $3.59 more per hour than females. That's 12%. So that can be a big difference. And then if you want to see between males and transgenders, move that to there. It's $12.51 per hour, or 43%. Okay. So I've done that for each of the ethnicities. Here you can see Asian men make $19 per hour more than Asian women, but there's only one Asian man and one Asian woman. So maybe not enough information in that population. We'll do the same thing for blacks and for Latinx, Native American, 2 or more races, there's just one of those, and whites. Take each one of those, copy paste it over to PowerPoint. So here, pay versus gender, we know that there are 78 males, 20 females, 2 transgenders, and the average male makes $3.59 more per hour than the average female. You have your transgender average salary here. It's the lowest. We'll look at each one of the ethnicities. Your Asian pay, again, only one male, one female, so it may be hard to compare them. The male's making more in this example. I believe this male is in information technology and this female is in operations. Here you have your black pay, 8 males, 2 females. So these are a little closer, but still the males are being paid more on average. At your Latinx pay, here the females are making more than the males on average. You have one transgender making lower on average than either males or females compared to other Latinx. Native Americans, just one. That's the average, nothing to compare them to. 2 or more, again, just one person, $23 on average per hour. Whites, here we have the majority. We have 63 out of 100 employees that are male, 14 that are female, and 1 that's transgender. 78 out of 100 total. Again, the males are making $3.15 more per hour than the females, and both male and female are making more than the transgender. So now that we have the average hourly rates, come back to Excel. So we had manually put the averages in here. We can compare over here the ethnicities, the group average versus the gender average. So this is for female. So our Asian females paid more on average than your regular female employee. So we know that our female employees on average make $28.87. We had seen that up here, $28.87. And we know that the Asian females make 1923. Black females on average make 26.44. 26.44. Manually put all these in. And then the difference. So here you can see on average that Asian females make less than other females. Black females make a little bit less. Latin females make a little bit less. White females, on average, make more than other females by 6%. Take all this, copy and paste, back to PowerPoint. So here you have your females by ethnic group versus your average female pay. So you can really see that the Asian women are making less on average than the other women. But again, we just have one Asian woman at this company, so that may not be enough information. But we do have 14 white females at this company that are making more on average than other females by $1.83 per hour, or 6%. Do the same thing with the men. Manually input all of these, made the formulas, made the percentage. So Asian men make $6 more per hour than other men. $6 per hour divided by your average man is 18%. So Asians receive 18% more per hour than the average male. Did that for each of the ethnicities. Copied and pasted, back to PowerPoint. So here you have your male ethnic groups, the average for each of those groups, and the average male, and the difference. So Asian men make more. Let's see, black men make less. Here you see it's $5 per hour less. Latin men, $8 per hour less. Native Americans are less, 2 or more or less. White men, on the other hand, are making $1.39 more on average than the regular average male, or 4%. All of these are negative except for the Asian one, but there's just one Asian guy. So that may not be enough information there, but you can see clearly all of these are negative. So these minority males are underpaid on average. And we'll also do the same thing for the transgenders. There were only 2 of them. There was one who was Latinx and one who was white. Their average was $19.95. So again, one was making more than the other since there's only 2 employees. They're transgender, so one is making 16% less, one is making 16% more, but there's only 2 of them, so we're just comparing them to each other. We'll copy and paste this information over here to PowerPoint. Whoops. So there you go. If you had more in your sample, then maybe you would have different information with more information available to you to analyze. Okay, and now that we have all of the employees versus their average, we're going to come back to our data, our edited table, clear the filter, and add a few more columns. Let's see, unhide. I had already added them. So here I put in, this is for data analysis. We did our data mining, we did our data cleansing, we're doing our data analysis. We looked at average salaries. Now we want to know whether each employee is at or above the average. So here I've put a little formula in here, and I've said if the actual annual salary of this employee is greater than or equal to the average for that salary range, then put a 1. If not, put a 0. So this employee is below average. They're making $35,000. The average is $45,000. They're below average. They get a 0. If they're at or above average, they get a 1. Again, I'm going to use these 1s and 0s to count in my pivot table. Let's see if I can find where I put this information. Here we go. Pivot table, ranges and graphs. All right, so here I have here I have the salary ranges. Let's see, oh, here we go. It's back on this one, on the pay tab. So I have employees versus their average salary range, at or above average. You could do a pivot table, or you could just manually add them up. Give me the ones that are at or above average. That's a 1. So I've got 20 that are at or above average. And 80 minus the header that are below average. Gotta find that. Okay, so 20 are above average, 80 are below average, 100 employees total. Give them my percentages. Come back, paste it over here, boom. So 80% of the employees are making below average for their salary range. That's huge. That's something that requires investigation there. Why are employees being underpaid? And what's going to be the consequences? Morale, fraud. So if you didn't have this information, you wouldn't know, but now that you have it, you can use it. So we're also going to look at the salary ranges. Where do they fall? How much money do they make? So I have input a column here for the salary range, and I just came up with these. I said who's making between 0 and 39,000, who's making between 40,000 and 59,000, 60,000 and 79,000, 80,000 to 99,000, and 100,000 to 119,000. I've got some filters on here. I'm going to go ahead and clear the filter. Select all, insert, pivot table. Done that already. This is my last tab here, ranges and graphs. Okay. So here I have the salary ranges. I have the sum of the count. Copied, pasted value, and then I ordered them because you can tell they're not in order. So here you have 0 to 39, and then it jumps up to 100, 40's down here. Put these in order, smallest to largest. I have my count, and I'm not going to paste the table. I'm going to make a graph, paste the graph. You would expect a bell curve or a normal curve with the hump in the middle. But again, you see, because people are underpaid, that this is skewed to the left. And you have your hump over here, then it trails off this way. Paste that to PowerPoint. So these are the employees by salary range. Over half of the employees are in this range right here. And again, you know, the hump is on the left and it trails off, as opposed to the normal bell curve where it's in the middle. Okay, so these are the salary ranges, and we're also going to look at ethnicities by annual salary to see what our ethnic groups are making. Okay, different pivot table. You can include the ethnicity. You're going to want to do that as a column. Copy, paste values. So that's right here. So we have our ranges, we have our ethnicities. Select all this, make it to a graph. So here we have our graphical representation. Copy, paste the graph over to PowerPoint. And it looks like this: ethnicities by annual salary. So these are stacked columns. If there's only one color in the column, that's only one ethnicity. So you can see at the high end of the range, over 100,000, you only have white, 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 and white. Over here in this range, you have more colors. This one, the lowest, you'll see one white person and, maybe two white people, one transgender person, one Latinx person. Anyway, here you have your ethnicities. And again, you can see at the higher end, there are no minorities. Okay, that's ethnicities. Lastly, we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to do it by gender. So here's your pivot table. You have your ranges. You have your ethnicity, or you have your gender. So in this last one, we have the ranges, we have the genders. We've made it into a graph. Copy and paste that graph back to PowerPoint. This is our last analysis here: annual salary by gender. Okay, so before we saw there are only whites on the upper end of the salaries. Come over here to the genders and you'll see that there are only males on the upper end of the salaries. And you can see in the lowest range there are no females, and the two transgenders fall in this range. They're on the top. That doesn't mean that they're the highest. It just means that they're somewhere in this range, and the small thin red line is how many are in there. So here's just one transgender here, one transgender person there, 44 males in this group, 10 females in this range. But again, on the upper end of the salaries, no females, no minorities, and there's very few at this end of the range. Mostly your employees are in this range, but that's how we would perform a diversity analysis from the data mining to the data cleansing through the analysis by gender, by ethnic group, by department, ethnicities versus the averages for their genders versus the averages for the hourly rates. So I hope you learned a lot, and look forward to doing another webinar on data analysis. Thank you.